This is generative AI and asset creation. Before we get into will be a very interesting discussion, I'm sure. If you could all introduce yourselves, please.
Yeah.
Starting with
Hey
Sebastian.
everyone, I'm Sebastian. I am the founder and CEO of Electric Sheep. Electric Sheep is a consulting and education business for AI. So I advise my clients on how they can use mainly generative AI in their businesses, and also, help them train their staff on how to use it efficiently. I've got a background in gaming. I worked for 6 years at Electronic Arts many, many moons ago, and also helped spearhead the gaming initiative at Netflix. So yeah, happy to be here.
Hey, I'm Sean. I am currently founding Orgin Stories, which is interactive live music experiences that leverages AI and blockchain. So we allow musicians and artists and audiences to co-create. Really exciting project, one of our first real world use cases. Before that, I've been building at the intersection of creative and tech. I built Lens AI, which was the first text-to-NFT tool, text-to-image to NFT tool technically, on the blockchain and Lens protocol. And then in my previous pre-pandemic life, I was a recording artist, actor, writer, director. So I'm one of these sort of hyper creators who have always used gaming and now making real world use cases with AI and blockchain tech.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Andreas, I'm the co-founder of AI Island. I'm happy to be here to bring my expertise in AI and machine learning. I came from the AI industry to gaming, and I'm happy to revolutionize the gaming industry with AI and blockchain technology.
Wonderful. All right, stellar panel. So generative AI is I think most people in the world who are somewhat aware of technology, they're talking about it right now. And there's one segment of the creative industry that is particularly angsty about it, and that is traditional entertainment. So the Writers Guild is still on strike, and SAG has, they followed suit, and they're still on strike. And honestly, a lot of the dispute is about the fact that these artists are afraid that they will sooner or later, probably sooner, be replaced by AI. And the way that they had been earning their keep so far, you can't do that anymore when you have digital competition, basically. So obviously, everyone on the panel here, you are not afraid of generative AI. You see it as a positive thing and a very powerful tool. So what do you say to the creative industry who's nervous about what this could mean for quality of IP, for their livelihoods? Maybe Sebastian, we can start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think they have definitely a point, be it actors or especially also voice actors. Over here in Germany, we've got one of the biggest voice acting communities and industries in the world. And when you see what you can achieve with, altering your voice with AI these days, I think they have a point that they are, concerned about their livelihoods, and also, the privacy aspects and copyright aspects of their work. So there's definitely some merit to it, but there will also always be this need for that human touch, that human emotion, especially when it comes to acting, when it comes to voice acting, especially. There are so subtle tones in the human voice. You still hear it, that every AI voice that you have, you kind of know it's still AI, but this will change like this, when you see how quickly stuff has advanced in the last year alone. And if you see, we are here to talk about gaming as well, when you see PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 5, that was 25 years. And when you see 16-bit graphics to hyper realistic graphics now, that has taken 25 years. And when we see the advances that have taken place in the last 18 months in that, I think, they definitely have a point. And what I am confident, and what makes me confident about still, AI and the interaction with the human actors and human voice actors, is the legislation part. So there is the dynamic that we see in legislation, be it in the US, be it on the EU level with the AI Act. There will be, this accompanying set of laws that I think will regulate the use of AI, and especially the copyright and data privacy aspect of this.
So I think there's kind of two things at play, right? Yes, you have people that are kind of scared they might be replaced, but I think there's been like a long history of how technology has disrupted without supporting the creator economy. And especially as we've entered Web3 the last couple of years, we had this huge sort of banner about the creator economy and, you know, shilling NFTs and like urging people to come into the space. And then as the minute it's not working, suddenly it's like, okay, now we're going to change the name. It's not Web3, it's on-chain. This is why it's not working. So you have a lot of creatives and creators who have, in the same way that you study for 20 years to be a doctor, have like learned human consciousness and nuance and color and shade and all of these pieces that are actually really valuable. Like even when you're prompting, to be able to actually look at that or like an image and know 50 Shades of Blue without actually having to chat GPT what that does to the scene or to the emotion. So I think the scary part is that we're lacking the educational onboarding of like, what can this technology do, and how can you pair your existing skills with something from AI, right? And because even right now we're just calling it the AI. Like every time I hear it on the news or somewhere, it just what is the AI? Are we talking about like text to image? Are we talking about video to video? Are we talking about fine-tuning models? Like just getting more specific with what actually it is and how you can pair it with another piece of what is part of what you're building. And I think with the Writers Guild, the issue is it's not even really about the actors, it's about writing and being able to take that, right, to make a data set, to fine tune a model, to then be able to have a voice to write the scripts for you, or like art direction. Like if you think about the Oscars, how many categories are there, right? There's costume designer, art director, editing, all of these things that are very nuanced, like technical skills.
Yeah.
And to have people come in who actually have never really trained on those and kind of be like, move over, it's over for all of you, is a very like, it's a hard place to meet in the middle, right?
Yeah.
It's the same reason why like traditional art has not embraced NFTs, because everyone's like, who needs the Louvre? And you're like, okay, well then we have no starting point to get anywhere.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think AI and machine learning already have been game changers for a while. Like they changed how we choose content, for example, the recommendation engines in Netflix and in social media.
Yeah.
But now it's completely disrupting the industry by enabling end users to create by AI. And I think it's mostly important in product creation. So for example, even if a product designer uses ChatGPT in his job, we will see potentially a different outcome from this usage. So we will see different products. We already can see the touch of AI in a lot of products right now, and I think giving the ability to end users to create is a good thing and a bad thing also, because, for example, if we look into the near future, I think the AI now is the biggest economy power that changes the world by removing some human-led jobs from the market, and that's something that we should consider while planning our future.
Yeah, yeah. No, all really great points. And so I just want to sort of level set with sort of the wider audience here, because I think that people get freaked out, honestly, when they see a viral video that is completely AI generated, for instance. Or they see an AI imitation of a celebrity or famous person, and it turns out to not be that person. People tend to freak out at these examples. So because you guys are all experts, riddle me this. How many of those pieces of AI work were actually by an expert human who like knew how to do that? Or was it just, a regular person generating those videos?
You mean like the Bud Light commercial?
Yeah, things like that.
I mean, right, so if you use the forum,
Yeah.
like we're talking about specific tools, right?
Yeah.
Like we're so early that like video to video has like two versions that exist. There's like a spinny latent space thing, and then like a really slow-mo, either left or right pan, with some like massive, action point at the beginning of the video, and then it cuts apart. We're just so early to be able to make that. So even all of these videos, the Coca-Cola ad, these are actually still being done with like mood boards and Final Cut and Adobe After Effects and like all of this high-level creative that allows you, like most people who are content creating don't understand like a beginning, a middle, and an end of a story arc, right?
Yeah.
Or like at first 15 seconds, like all of the kind of like basics that happen in every movie, every game, all these stuff. So when you have these things coming out, people are scared because they're also being told that it's AI, and you're like, it's kind of AI.
Yeah.
That's like an additional tool that now you're using, right, to expedite certain processes. But you still are needing to understand story and telling and tone and actually like editing, right? Like that's a video edit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I came here from a training session where I trained the staff of one of the biggest German media companies, and it was in Midjourney, and I basically introduced the tool to them, like by saying, don't be afraid, you won't be replaced by AI. You might be replaced by a human who knows how to, use AI and use those tools. So what you said is totally right. Like you still need to be able also to curate content, right? So there will be this abundance of AI-generated content, and 98 or 95% of that will be not so great. So, creation of AI-generated content will be one of the biggest skills. And I think, Rebecca, you made a point yesterday on a panel, like how AI or generative AI sort of enables and empowers like single-person developers or smaller studios who might not think of themselves as developers necessarily.
Yeah.
And that empowerment that generative AI brings to we all, like you said earlier, we all are creative here, but we are not, or I myself am not a graphic designer or motion designer. So if you look at the whole production pipeline of a video game today and how that can be like really tightened up using generative AI. I think a gentleman on the same panel yesterday said that they created like 9 video games with Web3 aspects to them, and it took like 4 to 5 years on average to create those games. And this will, be really shortened, and we will see even more games that we are seeing now, like 10,000 games a year on Steam, which is crazy. So also discoverability will be so crucial to find the good stuff in all that AI generated content as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, absolutely. But if we see, like, for the end customer, I think soon there will be no difference. If we see how Midjourney models, Stable Diffusion are evolving these years, every half year there is a major update of any model, and the quality is greater and greater and greater. And I think with this speed of evolving of the models, we will see no difference soon. But it's kind of funny, like, drive around the town and see all the the big boards with some AI generated pictures already, like it's already in the masses. So
it's super interesting to think about, because I feel like any single time that you have tools that just bring about the empowerment of people who may not be professionally trained to express themselves creatively, you find people who produce content that kind of looks and feels and follows the same rules as content that we all recognize as very, very good. And then you have people who create content that just becomes very, very popular, but probably no one had conceived of before, or people had thought was like terrible before. I honestly think most people, for example, look at TikTok videos and they're like, I have no idea why I just spent 5 minutes watching this video, but I just had to watch its conclusion. And it's something really dumb, like, how do you make a bag of spaghetti into one long spaghetti strip? I just watched that video this morning. I don't know why I did that. But you could tell, like, the storytelling elements were there if you really wanted to do a deep analysis on this bullshit TikTok video. But I have a feeling that, like, for generative AI content, it probably will kind of follow the same pattern, where some of the IP assets that we most prize out of generative AI and that are signatures for generative AI are things that we haven't seen before, or that frankly we probably would not really appreciate right now if we did see them. So have you guys thought about what that future could potentially look like?
So what I found really fascinating, and I can also only recommend, we had the investor panel earlier, just before here. There's a great position paper from Andreessen Horowitz, the investment VC firm, on generative AI in gaming, and they basically, summarize everything that they're looking for in terms of investing in companies. And what they are looking for is sort of a company that, consolidates, all those fragmented tools that there are right now for developers to use into one big suite of tools, And what I found really fascinating, among others, were like, examples where you, in terms of a motion, motion design or motion capturing, performance capturing, which you had to do painstakingly manually before, and it was really, intense in terms of labor as well.
Yeah.
You can just take any video now, and there are tools who like extract animation work from the movements of people or animals, or how hard we used to struggle for decades with animating certain animals for video games. So the fact that you can now go and take any given video and extract animation data from that, and I just find that fascinating to look at all the different areas of use for that, like also in sound effect design, for example. You can, like you said, like text to sound. You just type in laser sounding like Star Wars, and you get a couple of hundred sound effects that sound like something like lasers out of Star Wars, and you can use that for your game. So I think the future, especially when you look at generative AI for gaming, is super bright.
Yeah, like procedural, like the idea of co-creation amongst gamers as they're playing it out in real time feels very interesting. I think a lot about so TikTok's a very interesting example. Also, even Instagram, where these are social medias that don't require language, right? It's based on image, and prompt engineering and generative AI still is very much a language game, right? Even if you're getting your prompts from wherever on the internet, or you've cheat coded your list, you're still very much using real natural language to achieve what you're doing. And when you're younger, school is super boring, right? Especially when you're in English class, they're teaching about story arcs or colors. I remember in 7th grade or whatever, we learned about chartreuse, and I was super excited because I was like, oh my god, there's a green that's called chartreuse, wild. But a lot of people are like, why would I ever need that, right?
Yeah.
But to know that okay, when I go home tonight and I'm building whatever, I can imagine the next phase with this very specific color of green that then highlights something that I want to have happen, becomes really empowering.
Yeah.
And also kind of a reclamation of language, which is something we've lost as a society. So my hope is that the future, or my thought is of course, yes, what you said, there's gonna be so many assets, right? But we already know that. When we think about music, there's 200,000 songs a day, right? So now we're gonna have 600,000. There's no money in a digital asset on Spotify, so it doesn't really matter how many songs there are, right? But the curational level becomes really important. And in Web 2, non-decentralized world, curatorial kind of decisions are made by very specific parties and centralized kind of places, right? But we have a future where now curatorial decisions can be more decentralized, based by communities and different things, that becomes really exciting about what we can actually build. And so as long as we can figure out, also as communities and builders, what are our own standards, right? When we start thinking about remixing and provenance, a lot of games are based on lore, right? Historical lore. So a lot of things are just repetitive, right? There's only so many tools the Vikings have, right? So when you start trying to make your own version of that, but you're actually just imaging, screenshotting and then imaging something and then putting it into ControlNet to get a new version, did you actually make that? Or actually did you just rip this and now selling an asset that legally belongs to someone else? So figuring out what are our standards gonna be in terms of how we deal with creation and curation and the origins of items or worlds that are built, so that we can kind of have a good framework that it doesn't just kind of dissolve into chaos. I think that's generally what happens with new tech. Someone kind of gets a really good advantage and then it becomes chaotic. I'm thinking a lot about the music industry. A lot of the big execs right now are all we don't know what's happening. It's just we're having so many issues, and right, you're just you literally can trace what happened from Pirate Bay to Napster to Agreement to tech to Spotify to where we are right now. Where of course you can't break a pop star. There's it's not possible in how society works now. So if we can kind of take those learnings of last big disruptor was music and tech, and this is what happened when it didn't have the right places. How can we with gaming and this technology in gaming and AI start to planning ahead some kind of this is how we will address, or this is our collective ethos around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are some ways to use AI and experiment with it a lot. So we see a lot of hobbyists using AI. For example, if we search for an AI model for generating videos, we sometimes have an uncertain result. But if we think of it like with a more professional touch, for example, generating an AI movie, we need high quality, we need very good conversations, we need emotions, we need everything. And if we, for example, use a game engine, for example, Unity or Unreal Engine, we use hyper-realistic avatars of people, we use a language model for generating conversation, we add a layer of analyzing the outputs of the language model with some, let's say, emotional analysis backend, and that's becoming something that's like very unobvious but impressive, yeah. And for example, I think that's important when you use generative AI, is think very critically and creatively, not just use the tools for their initial purpose, but try to mix different tools between each other, and then you will get the best results when you like make unobvious things. So
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, once upon a time, very, very long time ago, I was a practicing lawyer. Obviously, don't do that anymore. And I'm not looking to get into a legal discussion here at all. But one of the aspects of Multiverse and using generative AI tools is that it's very easy to take existing IP and then turn it into some other IP. Are you guys already seeing just very lively discussions around that? Are people really hung up on it, or is it more sort of, we're so early, we're experimenting, let's like do it and then kind of ask for forgiveness later?
I think I better ask the opinion because, for example, we did some AI generative rap. What do you think about the IP if we take a voice of a known rapper and do some rap songs with it?
Well, you would literally be
Is this
sued today.
a breach of the intellectual property or no?
You would already have like several lawsuits and like a cease and desist from whatever label. This is what happened with the Ghostwriter song, right?
Yeah.
Which was
Yeah.
they basically were like, you have to take this down because you can't. That's public domain's one thing, right? So like something that's in the public domain, that is inspiring and easy to sort of like change. But someone who's living, like I think the part that is hard to kind of like convey is that we live in this world where like everything has become content creation, right? Like anything that is art related, everything's as an asset or like content creation, which is fine for like simplification of like teach me like it's my mom or like a 4-year-old, but the reality is like all of these creative practices are like lifelong practices. You have like you have teachers and apprentices and mentors, and you go through all of this thing to get to the level where you can accomplish whatever you do so easily to the public. So to be able to like, I don't know, even Drake, right? Like Drake is someone who is like, when he started, everyone was like, he's never gonna make it, like blah, 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 right? Obviously he was a TV star or whatever, but he worked super hard, has his own very unique flow. Like, you just know it's Drake. And so like you could as a human try to implement that or want to make that yourself, but just to actually like take it, that is not possible. And I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that you can't do that.
Oh yeah, I see. So that's why this is still a controversial topic. Yeah.
Well, that's
for
why
example,
it's terrific, right?
if we think about the legal field, AI and the gaming industry, Steam is one of the example having a very like strict point of view on all these things. For example, they just published some materials that they have a very strict view on the usage of the generative AI in games. For example, if the models were trained on public data sets that use some IP from other sources, so you cannot use this generative AI, and they will prohibit your game to be published on Steam. And we see like Steam are still very very strict on some things like usage of blockchain. They don't allow any blockchain. They not allowing usage of these generative AI models, and usually all the generative AI models, they were trained on all the data that's available on the internet. So literally, we are not allowed to use any of them if we want to publish our game on Steam. Yeah.
Or you make your own. You're an ML, aren't you?
Sorry.
ML? Aren't you an ML? Machine learning?
Yeah, I'm into machine learning.
So we're gonna make our own.
A while, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna make our own. We'll take the papers and we'll have the
train
ethical.
our own models.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm pointing to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Adobe's trying, but Adobe, I think it's an interesting use case of like, okay, this is going to be more ethical and all of these kind of things, but then you also wind up getting this kind of like Shutterstock, like content creator vibe, which is content creation, but this imaginative world, I think, it's just going to take time, right? It's like, if you think about Picasso, right? Like you could type in Picasso into a prompt, and you would get, you could get 12 different movements from Picasso, right? Because he was blue period, cubism. Like, I don't know which version of Picasso you're going to give me if I just type Picasso. But if you know enough about it, you're like, okay, cubism, I want like that phase. Well, then you don't even really need Picasso, right? Then we're like talking about an art movement that happened. And it's like, I want cubist figures in X, whatever. So it's like, how do you also allow people to dissect? We want everything so fast. It's like, just take 5 seconds, dissect what's actually happening, and then use that, right? That's natural language, because Picasso, it basically trained on art, right? He was like a manual technologist, like his dad set him in a room, trained him on like the human data set of art, and then it's like, now what do you make? And so he's basically an example of someone who isn't a computer, but able to like take that data set and then make something new. Mm-hmm. And I think if we think about what we're doing versus like, I just need to steal this in the way of being like, okay, it's Dali or like, Tom Hanks or whatever, and maybe take the ethos, like what are the things that are behind it that make it really unique? In terms of using it on Steam, that's going to take forever, right? Because people are just going to want the fast route, right? They're just going to want to, no one's going to know I took this from D&D and then like put it in, like everyone will know, right? Like, so if we can start to like remove that somehow, which is not innate to gaming, we have cheat codes, that's part of gaming, right? But this idea of like, okay, like level up, right? Like by actually doing the work, you actually get a better advantage. That becomes also interesting in terms of creation, I think.
Yep. Absolutely. Sebastian, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think you guys briefly touched on the Adobe Firefly case, right? Where they basically guarantee their users, okay, our generative AI, if you ever run into any kind of copyright lawsuit, we will take on the cost, because they are training their model on their own, stock database and commonwealth or common project assets. So I think they really, through that, have a competitive advantage in the field against open and openly trained models like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. So from a competitive standpoint, I find this really interesting. And also in terms of legislation, we are still completely in the Wild West phase, right? So if you compare that to how, for example, social media, all that stuff took place, it took 8 years for Mark Zuckerberg to, appear before Congress and explain to them how, his business works and how he does, how the company makes money. And in the last couple of months, we had Sam Altman from OpenAI and other leaders from generative AI companies up on that stage and ask for legislations themselves. Well, not, also for their reasons, they want to heavily alter that legislation towards their business and how they would like that to turn out. But still, I think it's going much more faster if you compare that to something like social media in recent years.
Now, one really curious phenomenon for those of us who have been in crypto and been in this space for a long time is so I would say 2022, so it was just last year, when Saga was really getting going, Web3 gaming was truly growing as a sector. And so a lot of talent coming into this space, a lot of people who were not game developers looking to nevertheless develop Web3 games. And then the bear market hit. So after FTX went down, I know I probably shouldn't mention FTX at this conference, but yeah, it's okay, guys, real talk. So after FTX went down, that's when, the market for crypto really started to freeze up. And a lot of the incentive to do, say, play to earn games or games that were heavily based on crypto or in-game asset trading, that really started to dry up a little bit. And then these teams started to pivot into AI because they saw an opportunity there. So every team has a different perspective on the kind of product that they want to offer, but what would you all of you have such deep backgrounds in the creative industry and thinking about AI. How do you look at projects like that are trying to go from crypto native to AI native to cognitive blockchains AI-based blockchains? Like, how do you see that progression?
I think that's a great topic to touch because
Yeah.
like the buzzword of AI, it became really a buzzword,
Yeah.
and it could be potentially a big problem in the industry, like the word of metaverse, because lots of metaverses, they raised a lot of funds and then pivoted into something like a launchpad or an NFT marketplace or something other, and I think there is a problem that there are a lot of startups supported by big VCs, by Y Combinator, that are just like website with some usage of OpenAI API, and they call them AI startups. And that will be, I think, a scam board one day. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the challenge is that what I've found is like, it's cool to feel like you know everything that's happening, but it's also okay to say that you don't.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So we are in this world where people were like, we're building these Web3 native products, and it's like, okay, well, what's an L2? Right? Like, how am I bridging this? Like, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? And when it comes to AI, and so it's like, I think on the surface, the pivot is like, it's because we're trying to solve problems that don't actually exist, right?
Yeah.
Like the win of why I even got into Web3 and the gaming and everything is like this idea of creator economy, play to earn. Like we're actually going to like facilitate like economic growth amongst people who don't have that already. I mean, obviously you have like the people that continue to grow on top. But then if we don't have this like educational system where like, okay, we're all on the same page and actually understand what we're discussing or what we're talking about when we talk about terms, then everything is of course never going to land.
Sorry to step in and cut us short, but we're a little over, so
that's right.
Keep the train rolling.
Oh my God. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Bryson, and thank you guys so much. Really fascinating panel as always. And yeah, generative AI. Talk to these guys.
Right.
All right. Thanks so much. Big round of applause.